Okay, so another video. It's been a while. So this video is going to be on the cybernetics of Black philosophical thought, okay? And before we jump into it, we need to give a definition of cybernetics. So cybernetics in general is the science of exploring man and the environment. How man influences the environment, how the environment influences man, how man sees his environment, and things like that, right? So, it could be man and machine, it could be man, and the systems that are around them, but it's environment. It's pretty much how man views the things around him, to put it in the most simplest definition. So the thing with Black thought that I noticed, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing, and I noticed this when I was like thinking about Black existentialism. The thing with our thought is that it always has to be connected to white institutions, right? And I'm not one of those people that's going to come up in here and talk about like, hey, Eurocentric systems have no negative impact on Black people. I'm not gonna be that guy. But I do want to just bring up an idea that could be useful to ponder upon. And it's just the fact that our thought, always and is only connected to that aspect of our environment. Is this how essentially is our living, you know, within a white world? How can we view our living with being inside of a white world? Essentially, that's what Black thought is currently. I mean, you could think of it like, blackness and lightness, white supremacy. It goes on and on. And, a good allegory that you can really think about this is from the aspect of, the plantation. For a lot of us, view the plantation as a place that, I'm not gonna say a lot of us. I'm gonna say portions, right? A portion of us view the plantation as a place that is straight, right? We're fed or whatever, and everything's cool. People suffer, but every race suffers. We're getting shitted on, but every race gets shitted on. It is what it is. Then you have those people that escape the plantation, but when they escape the plantation, their thoughts are still geared towards the plantation. Their thoughts are still geared towards how can we eradicate the existence of the plantation. Now that I've exited the plantation, what is my living? How can I view my living with it being in connection to the plantation? So even though they've left the plantation physically, they're still mentally inside the plantation, right? So cybernetically, they're still in there. It's still a part of their environment. And what I want to think about is, what would Black philosophical thought be like if we essentially like left the plantation? I'm not talking about we left the plantation and now we're gonna go back. I'm talking about like we leave the plantation, and when we leave the plantation doesn't even exist anymore, and it's just ourselves. What would Black philosophical thought be if it was just the black person just thinking of philosophy as a living that is only them, that is pretty much institutions, influences that are only associated with them and them alone. What would that type of thought be like? Because I mean, think about it. A lot of the stuff that we have do come from, that plantation. I mean, we didn't have, a black, what I'm saying? Like we had tribes. You feel me? There's probably, we are all calling each other black, but probably like a couple centuries ago, we would have probably had beef because your tribe would be going to war with my tribe. So most of our thinking and most of our terms are brought about by the West. And, for me, don't mind the whatchamacalls, it's the freaking people are taking care of their lawn right now. So most of our thinking is connected to that transatlantic slave trade experience. But if we just took that out of our minds, what would our thinking be like? Right? How would we live our lives? Like how creative, like how much creative freedom would we gain if we got to that point? And when I'm saying, philosophy and all that sort of stuff, I want to still give credence to those that would give the rebuttal of, we still need to address, maintaining and improving the living conditions first. And I agree, we still need to maintain and improve the living conditions first. But we also have to think about, what do we want those living conditions? What do we want the improvement of our physical sustainability to pretty much culminate into? What do we wish to become? What do we wish to evolve and emerge into, besides the just a black man that was a descendant of slaves? What do we wish to be besides that, right? And really, I think every race is experiencing this moment, really. And unfortunately, every race is going about the revivalist, tactic that I talked about in my capitalist realism video. They're going about the revivalist tactic. So you got white people going back to being racist. You got us blacks going back to being, the black Marxist type of individuals, which again, I'm not against socialist solutions, but we can't. But just sticking to like a socialist mindset, that when the human has all of his, if every human had all of their needs met, every human would be a virtuous person. I'm not that type. I don't agree with that. So everybody's going through it, right? But the true aim and the true hope should be not having to go back and to, revive, is to birth a new black person, a new white person, a new Asian, a new Hispanic, a new Pacific Islander. It goes on and on and on and on, right? A new Native American. Despite history, how can we emerge anew out of history, despite what has gone on with history? How can we emerge out of the constrictive realism of our lived experiences currently, and to escape this boredom of being who we are, right? Because I think that's one thing, and that sounds depressing, but I think everybody is just sick of being who they are because they can't be anything new. They're not really. Nothing new is happening within the identity. Nothing new is happening within the environment. So everybody is just essentially bored with themselves, and bored with the world around them. And they're bored in this way, and they're not cybernetically freeing themselves from this boredom because they're still cybernetically constrained. Um, as well as, again, going back to that whole schizophrenia thing, um, you do one thing, you do the opposite, and the same thing still happens. So at some point, you just have to start tricking yourself into believing that you're okay when in actuality you're not okay. So, just to put it simply, right? Just to wrap this video up, because this should have really been a much shorter video. Um, can black people achieve a cybernetic freedom within their philosophical and sociological thinking, to where we're no longer the black American that we are currently, and we are something different, right? And with cybernetics, of course, this is man and the environment. So do you think that this is due to insufficient resources being within? Well, one, I think this is where I think this is where perspectives are going to be important. Some people might say that it's due to, just the black psyche being incomplete. And another person might say, well, it's just due to the environment just being decrepit. Me, I think it's a connection. I think it's a connection of both, right? So I think that's a question of just seeing the perspectives of the people watching. Do you think that our cybernetic freedom is due to insufficiencies within the man, or insufficiencies within the environment? And if that emergence does come about, um, what do you think are the consequences of it? Like, do you think that the black American will have more power, or do you think that the black American will have less power? Do you think that who do you think will be the enemy of such a new organism, right, within the human society? But anyways, this is just something. This is just something to throw out there. But anyways, this is your boy Jalen signing out. Peace.